This week, Jesus is starting to talk about some pretty dark stuff, that when he's gone and when he comes back at the end of time and the signs that will accompany it. I can't even imagine him talking like this. If he's your friend and your brother and you've journeyed with him and been with him for so long, it must just be difficult for the disciples. We're going to dive into that in this podcast today. Welcome back to Lift Up Your Hearts podcast. This is a podcast where I do an Ignatian-style prayer. It really is to try to simplify it so that anyone can pray with Scripture and have a deep prayer life. You can enter into it. You don't have to be a scholar of any type of language. I guess, no scholars. No, you don't even have to be a scholar in your own native language. You just have to use your imagination and dive into scriptures, be vulnerable with Jesus, and I think it will allow you to have a real relationship with him and start to talk to him about things that really matter to you in your life, and you'll examine how you feel about a lot of stuff, and I think that's a good thing. So St. Ignatius says that the first thing to do in any prayer is to take the moment of an Our Father, 10 or 15 seconds, to contemplate the Father's love for us, to contemplate him gazing upon us, not to just kind of meditate on God loving you, but to actually imagine him looking at you with love, gazing upon you with love, like a good and loving Father. Very different than thinking about God's love and thinking about God gazing upon you now and throughout your day. This is something you can do throughout your day as well. So we'll take that moment of an Our Father and contemplate the Father gazing upon us with love. Today's gospel is a little dark, like I said. We're getting into Jesus, predicting what's going to happen, that there's going to be a lot of turmoil. There's going to be persecution. You will be persecuted, talking to his disciples. And you will go to jail, and you will be, but preach the good news first. Make sure you preach the good news that I have come. There's going to be some that are coming that say they are me, and don't believe them. And to see the signs that the Son of Man will come in the clouds, and to watch for those signs. But you don't know when they're going to happen. I imagine as one of the disciples, this is kind of a difficult thing to hear. Someone you dearly love. I can even imagine, sometimes even family talking about death or when they're gone. The temptation is like, no, don't talk about that. Let's just live where we're at right now. And that might even be a temptation for you today as you listen to this. This is difficult. So dive into it with me. The first time I read it through, I encourage you to kind of just get the setting and hear what's happening. This one especially, I think you might want to read a little bit before to get that picture that there's going to be suffering and there's going to be people that say they're coming as Jesus, but they're not really him. And you shouldn't trust them. They're going to say that they're him, they're the Messiah. False messiahs will appear and produce signs and omens and lead people astray. But be alert. I've already told you everything. Okay, so they're not going to tell you anything new about me. Okay? So this is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 13, verses 24 through 32. But in those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. And the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and put forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these signs taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. So this is all kind of coming into picture, into focus, because some of the disciples are talking about the temple, or the buildings, and the stones that make up the buildings, and Jesus says that these are going to be knocked down and they're going to be gone. And then he starts to get into foretelling what's going to happen, and then he gets into today to watch for these signs. And I could imagine, they're probably kind of walking with Jesus at this moment, because they're kind of walking somewhere, and one of the disciples is pointing out the rocks that make up the buildings, and then Jesus starts to go into this, teaching about false prophets, and that there's going to be fighting and suffering and persecution. And then when he comes back, these are going to be the signs. These are going to be the signs when he comes back. The stars will fall from the sky. It will be dark. The moon will not give its light. You'll see him coming on the clouds. And to learn from the fig tree, it seems kind of an odd thing to add in here. But to learn from the fig tree, I think part of it is just saying, like, it's so obvious when the fig tree gives forth its leaves that summer's coming. Like, we all know that. We all kind of know that. And I think maybe he's kind of giving this impression that it might be a temptation to see these signs and not think this is happening. But don't miss the obvious signs, okay? And then he says his interesting line here at the end, truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place, which we can think of now as like, well, what has happened here that it hasn't taken place? I don't know. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But at that day or hour, no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. And then, of course, right after that, Jesus says, beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It's like a man who's going on a journey. When he leaves his home, puts his slaves in charge, and he tells this story about being ready. We have to be ready. And hearing this, I think the first thing is, like, I'm kind of like, I don't want Jesus to be talking about this, I don't feel ready for that. And he tells them, you're ready. As one of the disciples, I was kind of just pointing out the rocks and the buildings, and isn't that interesting? And then he goes into this story when he's going to be gone, and there's going to be persecution, and he's talking about these signs, but I'm still a little bit lost in the suffering that I'm gonna go through, and that's going to be difficult. And then there's going to be these signs. And it seems like, as one of the disciples, that I'm going to see these signs. Like, I'm going to live to see these signs. And they didn't. The Lord has not come back yet. And I think they were probably thinking he would within their lifetime. Like, he's coming. Like, get ready. And I think that's part of it is be ready. Always be ready. As one of the disciples, I'm always waiting now because he said it's going to happen. And I don't think this makes him a liar, of course, because we don't really know what this generation means. He's talking about maybe the human generation or this generation on earth or this time on earth because, his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways not our ways, and we don't quite understand it. It's a little bit obscure. But we know for sure we don't know the time. And also I kind of get a feeling as one of his disciples that I'm not going to be able to ask for it because he's not going to tell us. Because he doesn't know. He also says the Son doesn't know, only the Father. Only the Father knows. Okay, I guess I can't ask because he's not going to tell me because he doesn't know, But he just says to be ready. Okay. I don't know the time, but to be ready. I feel some urgency. As one of the disciples, I certainly feel some urgency about this message. That this is going to happen. I think, and I can look back in retrospect and see that this is about having urgency, about spreading the good news and living my life for him now so that I don't ever have to say, oh man, I missed it and I'm gone or he's come and I'm not living my life for him. I'm not giving my life to him. I guess a skeptic, I could be one of the skeptical disciples and say, this just feels a little bit like a manipulation move. Like, oh, well, I don't know, and just be ready always. But I can't believe that to be true because he loves me. And he wants what's good for me. And so he's asking me to be ready. That I know this will happen, and I don't know the time. I don't know when my life will end, so give my life to him now, and live my life for him now, and give it all. So I think that's my prayer. I think even in my prayer this week, we'll be kind of diving into that with him, like maybe even wrestling with that thought that it might be kind of not tricking us to do something with urgency. But, if he doesn't know the time, he's just telling us with sincerity, And there is some urgency to that as well, too. So maybe I'll wrestle with that a little bit in my prayer. Like, what does that mean? Why do I doubt this? Why do I think it's a move and not just love? So, pray for me. I am praying for you. I'll see you next time. God bless.